Hello and welcome to Witness. I'm Raghi Omar. In 2007, Osama Keishu, a Palestinian, traveled to Cuba. He arrived at a time of feverish political uncertainty as Fidel Castro suddenly seemed to be on the point of stepping aside. This was not something he'd expected, nor did he expect to become part of the story himself. When Osama introduced himself as Palestinian, people looked at him in disbelief. He soon discovered that Havana had its own Palestinians, poor migrants from the east of the island who were black and mostly without any ID. In fact, he found that in Cuba, Palestino is a term of racist abuse used to describe these people. In his film, Soy Palestino, Osama lifts the lid on this untold aspect of Castro's Cuba. Inadvertently and purely as a result of introducing himself as a Palestinian, Osama had stumbled on a hidden underclass in this staunchly socialist society.
I've arrived in Havana for the first time. I don't speak much Spanish, but I've always wanted to come here because of its political and social support for my country, Palestine. Like with all foreigners, the Cuban people are interested in where I come from. But when I tell them I'm a Palestinian, often I get a very strange response.
Yo palestino. No, tú no eres palestino.
You Palestino?
No, no. Tú palestino. Te digo.
Yo palestino aquí me llamo, mami.
No. I can't understand why all these people don't believe I'm a Palestinian. What is wrong with being a Palestinian? They tell me I could never be a Palestino and take me to meet some real Palestinos in a street nearby. That is how I met Lucito, one of Havana's most famous Palestinos.
El palestino soy yo, a la hora de improvisar. Yo tengo mi forma propia, yo soy el original, esta carretilla que tengo en la copia. Gracias le doy a Dios, porque vengo cantando. Caballero, yo lo que quiero, que la gente con Luisito esté cooperando. Soy un palestino normal.
Con nombre Osama. Osama.
Tuyo.
Sí, sí.
El nombre de él es Sama.
Zapa.
No Osama, Osama.
Osama.
Osama Bin Laden.
No, no Bin Laden, ¿no?
Zapa, no Zapa.
Osama, Osama.
Osama. Luis Enrique Rosabal Rodríguez.
I can understand that Lucito is singing about being a Palestinian, but as far as I can see, he's absolutely Cuban.
¡El aplauso, coño!
Lucito invited me to see where he lives. I wanted to know more about this Cuban Palestinian, so I followed him home.
Esta,
Sí,
mi ropa. Ropa.
sí,
Y aquí
sí.
es donde yo me baño.
¿El baño?
Si yo me baño.
¿El baño?
Estas son mis herramientas de trabajo. ¿Entiendes?
I can understand that Lucito is poor and this is where he lives. But what I really want to know is how come he is a Palestinian. He's Palestinian?
Lucito, no, Cuban. Cuban. Lucito's Cuban.
Oh,
Cuban.
so why the people told me that he's a Palestino?
Because he was born in the orient of Cuba and Havana. Havana. People says at Cuban that was born in orient of Cuba. They are Palestine.
Why?
Because your home is there in the orient of Cuba, not here. Okay? You understand? Your home is not here.
So it's the Cubans in Havana who come up with this word, Palestino, using it to describe the many migrant arrivals from the east of the island like Lucito. But what is the connection to Palestine? Were people like Lucito called Palestinos simply because they were homeless and displaced like the Palestinians? I decided to stay with Lucito and find out more. We couldn't communicate very well, but we stayed up late into the night, and I ended up sleeping outside his box until the morning.
Yeah.
Lucito had been living in this car park for many years, ever since he had arrived from the east of Cuba.
Yo me separé de mi familia. Yo me separé de mi familia de que el padre mío me cogió y me metió a mí por una escuela de conducta. De ahí yo cogí, salté por un centro menor. Fíjate que este cuerpo a mí, como quien dice, parte de este cuerpo me lo dio a mí el Ministerio del Interior. De ahí del centro menores, o sea, salí, pero seguí en la delincuencia. Y entonces vine para acá, para La Habana. Aquí fracasé. Me fui para Habana Campo. Allá me llevé un saco bajo para poder tener dinero y venderlo. Y me cogió la policía, me metieron 3 meses por la cabeza. Él me presenté a Oriente, me dieron la baja del centro menores. De ahí no me bastó con aquello. Me metí en una casa de arroz allá en Guisa, ahí en Oriente, por allá. Me llevé una X cantidad de aceite. Caí preso. Me echaron 3 años. Salí de la prisión. Mi familia pensó que yo iba toda la vida a estar preso. Mentira. Salí de la prisión, vine para aquí, para La Habana. Dije, voy a cambiar de sistema y voy a apartarme de Oriente. Vine para acá, para La Habana. Aquí me he hecho persona. Persona en el sentido. Hace 5 años que no sé nada de mi madre. Allá en Oriente vive mi mamá, mi hermana. ¿Me entiendes? Allá vive todo el mundo, toda mi familia. Todo.
Like in Palestine, finding work is not easy, and so Lucito ended up living on the streets. He decided to build his own home, which is also a traveling musical instrument. He collects the junk and rubbish he finds in the streets and reuses it to create his house on wheels and the various instruments he plays, like the trumpet from a bottle. I was intrigued to learn more about Lucito, and was also still confused about the whole Palestino thing. He told me that most of his audience were Palestinos, and if I wanted to understand better, I should follow him through the streets and meet them. I had only managed to catch a few minutes of Lucito's performance the day before, so I was excited to see him in action with the crowds.
¿Verdad que la puerta no le cae uno en la cabeza ahí? Sí. Esa puerta es medio traicionera. Ahí está ella. Ya.
No, para 2 personas. Alquila por hora.
Sí, se alquila ahí para las viejas pellejúas como tú ahí. Viejos y viejas pellejuzas. Viejas de guatacado y viejas desclaveteadas. Con ustedes el hombre orquesta de Cuba natural de Bayamo. Aunque dice que para Bayamo no mira mania jodida. No sabiendo que soy palestino, que yo de La Habana no me voy más. Saca cuenta, 12 años trabajando aquí en La Habana, ¿qué rayo va a ser Oriente? A comer yuca y plátano, ya joder, está loco. Pero si nos ponemos a sacar cuenta, La Habana está llena de Oriente, ya díselo.
From listening to Lucito's songs and watching the audience around him, I start to recognize them. Cuban migrants who have come to Havana seeking work and a better life, but finds themselves displaced, looked down upon, and called Palestinos.
Todo el mundo, todos los habaneros, palestinos, tú eres palestino, tú eres palestino. Nos maltratan. Tú eres palestino, no, yo soy habanera. Una rivalidad en las 2 provincias. La aquí Ciudad Habana y la de Oriente. Ahora tú eres oriental y yo no ando contigo. Y así.
¿Por qué?
Porque es así, pero son de allá. Tienen discordia. Todo el mundo es cubano, pero tienen discordia.
I came thinking that everyone in Cuba was supposed to be equal, and that Havana is for all Cubans. But it seems that people from the East are not welcomed and looked down upon. My own people have been displaced and forced to migrate all over, so this is something I can definitely relate to. I can see why they are called Palestinos, but I'm not happy about it. The idea of using Palestine as an insult is very distressing.
Join me after the break as Osama delves deeper into the world of Cuba's Palestinos.